Hi, how are you, Logan?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Well, nice. Welcome to the Coaching Collective Online. I'm so glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
So I thought we could start out by you introducing yourself and letting us know, let the audience know what you do.
Yeah. My name is Logan, and about 11 years ago, I started a company called Total Wealth. And what we do is we help about three different groups of people worry less. And the three types of people that we help are young families with kids,
Mhm.
and people that are getting close to or near retirement, and business owners. And those are the folks that we focus on helping.
Well, nice. How long have you been doing that?
We just had our 10-year anniversary last July. I
Congratulations.
had been in the industry a few years before that,
Mhm.
but really, kind of how that started was the summer after my junior year of college. We did an internship with a large insurance company. I don't want to mention the name, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. Basically, what all these big finance firms do is they have you make a list of like 100 people that you know, and they send a sales manager with you, and you try to beat up your friends and family to buy life insurance. And um, life insurance, a lot of people need it. It's super valuable, but I just like it felt really salesy, and it didn't feel like we were actually like sitting down with people and figuring out, what their biggest fears were and helping them solve those problems. And so I, was getting ready to be a father for the first time when I was 27 years old. And I was like stuck in this situation where I either needed to find a different career or like set out on this path to build the perfect financial planning firm. And, that's kind of the route that I went. And here we are, about 11 years later.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's always interesting to see, what led somebody down their career path. And um, along that line, what makes you, dare I say, have a passion for what you do, or what drives you to keep doing what you do?
Yeah. Well, I would say that most people that are entrepreneurs, they found some problem to solve. And that's, the catalyst of what they do. So what I saw, well, kind of taking a step back, is like when I was younger, there was a one of the ways that I meet new people that need help from a wealth management standpoint is we teach adult educational, like retirement, tax planning, income planning classes around the metro and different libraries. And when I didn't know a lot about finance or money growing up. I just never was in a situation to learn about that. And I graduated college with a lot of student loan debt that I wasn't prepared for at all. And so it was that, with being in the industry and seeing how like a lot of people were getting taken advantage of because they didn't have the full picture, or things would come up later that they weren't planned for because and this is something I talk to a lot of people about, but the term financial advisor doesn't really mean anything. You don't need a license to call yourself a financial advisor. So a lot of times people are working with a financial advisor and they think they're getting advice on everything, but there's a lot of things missing. And so that's where my passion came from. And also, there's like from the business perspective, it's like, hey, if you can solve some real serious problems for some people, that usually can turn into a good business model.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like a lot of people, you don't know what you don't know. And so I think that it's nice to hear your perspective and that it sounds like you like to educate people on kind of like a holistic approach to their money for what they may need now and planning for the future.
Right. Yep. Exactly. So one of the things that's really unique about us is that, and I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, and it's kind of overwhelming because when we potentially consider working with a new client, we have to look at like everything. We're looking at tax returns, life insurance, investment statements. We're having conversations about, hey, what keeps you up at night? What are your hopes, dreams, and goals? And
Yes.
especially, if there's a spouse involved, there's usually always one or two things that they're not very good about communicating about. And that'll come out and, almost turn into a little therapy session. But it's really important to get it all out there
Mhm.
because, we all know that life is short. And what we do is look at all these different areas to make sure that there's no roadblocks that are going to come up in the future.
That's nice. Yeah. So, what do you wish everyone understood about their finances that most people overlook?
I would say that it's not really like one thing specifically, like it's investing. It's that if there's one thing about your financial picture or your wealth management team that you don't completely understand, then you might need somebody else to help you. Because what happens, so a lot of people that call themselves financial advisors are single purpose where they just sell life insurance or they just sell mutual funds or maybe a couple of those things. And so when we meet people from these classes and we talk about estate planning, avoiding probate, and how to reduce taxes in retirement, a lot of times what they say is, well, my advisor hasn't talked about that yet, and they've been working with them for 10 or 20 years. And I'm like, well, why is that? And these clients are taking the blame. It's like, well, it's because I didn't ask them about it. And from my perspective, I'm like, you know, you're paying somebody to help you with this. That's not your responsibility to say, hey, is there anything I'm missing or I'm not thinking about? So
Mhm.
I think what I would tell folks is that if there's, if you go see something on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and it's like an income, you don't have a written income plan, or you've never talked to your advisor about taxes, or if there's anything that you're not certain about, then there's a chance that you might need to work with somebody else. And so, but it's again, going back to the term financial advisor, it makes it really difficult for consumers to know even what that financial advisor does. Like, I wish they would just get rid of that title. Like, if you're insurance licensed, just call yourself an insurance agent. If you can help people with investments, there's an investment advisor license. In real estate, you can't sell real estate unless you have a license. Like, you can't be a doctor or an attorney without passing exams. So it's really confusing for people what a financial advisor does. And so, if you're one of those people that's not totally confident about something, then, I would look for somebody first that's a certified financial planner. That doesn't necessarily mean that they know everything, but what it does mean is they have a well-rounded picture of like all the different areas of retirement. And that's at least going to be a good start.
That's a lot of good advice because many people don't know much about how to save or what to plan for when they feel like they can barely make ends meet day to day. So it would
Right.
be nice to have somebody build that trust from the get-go and talk about every single part of maybe their financial needs and look at it like a big picture. So that's really good
Right.
to hear. In your
Well,
ex Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was just going to say, like, the thing too is like we all have things that we love to do and things that we hate to do.
Hmm.
And if keeping track of your finances is something that you hate to do, then you need somebody in your corner that does not have an emotional attachment to your money that's going to say, hey, we need to look at this, or hey, we need to consider this. And there's people like me who love diving into that stuff. So, I think like, and to me, this is kind of like a little off topic, but this is what life is all about. Like, best case scenario is we would all only work on things that light us up or make us feel good, and we would delegate everything else. So, what we want people to do is to delegate all of their wealth management issues to us. Like, we can manage the relationship with your CPA. If you don't want to talk about tax returns, let us manage that relationship and we'll just bring the information to you when you need to make a decision. You don't want to talk to the attorney because you don't speak the language. Let us talk to the attorney or the real estate agent or, whoever it is on your behalf, so you can focus on the things you love, like your family or your business or whatever that is. And so at the end of the day, I think that's what we all should be trying to do is get rid of all the tasks that we don't love and give that to somebody else.
That's nice advice. It's good to hear. In your experience, what does it really take to be financially secure, and what are the key building blocks?
I wish I had like some like really eloquent answer for this, but I think at the end of the day, it just comes back to having a plan.
Mhm.
Because when I was in high school, I was a wrestler. for a long time, wrestled in college, but we had this coach who he was the coach back in the 50s and 60s, or the 60s and 70s, but he's still around the community. He's a pillar of the community. Everybody knows him, everybody loves him, but he used to make these paper practice planners. And I'll never forget this. And I tell this people, hopefully I haven't told you this story already, but at the top of every page, it has the same quote. If you fail to plan, plan to fail. And so, the way that people feel secure is when they know that like everything's taken care of. And the only way that you can know that everything was taken care of is if you make a choice to know that everything was taken care of. And the way that you do that is with a complete financial plan.
Yes, so true. I know from personal experience, I also at times would avoid looking at my bank account. I didn't want to see it
Yeah.
because I didn't think, okay, I'm afraid I don't have enough money in there. I don't have enough money for what I really want to do. Therefore, I'm going to avoid even looking at this because it's stressful. And then on the flip side, once you save and you have money to look at, then you actually feel more comfortable and proud and excited that you're building and you're saving towards all the things that you want in life, even if it's, well, it should be for like retirement or something in the future in case something were to happen, or just so you know that you have this nest egg, so to speak, or you have this little cushion um, to fall back upon.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the thing about like going through the planning process is like, so, it's easy, I think money and health maybe are the two things. Like money's like one of the biggest reasons that people fight or couples do and get a divorce. And so the really cool part about going through our process and putting a plan together is like, let's say you're not in a good spot and it's going to take 2 or 3 years to get there. Well, it's not going to take 2 or 3 years for you to feel better. As soon as we get organized and as soon as you have like a path where you can start to see, okay, I know I now can work myself out of this, you start to have some optimism and some hope and some drive to work towards that instead of just like ignoring, that skeleton in the closet and letting it fill you with, more anxiety that just like ruins every other relationship that you have.
I agree. Do you find that there are any particular misconceptions about money that people tend to trip up on?
Yeah, I think people are like overly concerned about like what they should invest in. Especially like a lot of the young families and kids that so I guess we'll meet people and they're like, "Hey, I just need investment help." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, what is your savings rate? Like how much of your income are you saving?" I have no idea. Okay, well, let's start there. Like what's more important is that you're saving every month, every year, every week if you can, than like what you're invested in. Like at the end of the day, if you just saved some money every month and put it into an S&P 500 index fund, you're going to get some pretty good results. Like now the advantage of working with somebody like me, according to Vanguard, they did a study, is that, we all have an emotional attachment to our own money. So it's nice to have a third party in there just to say, whoa, okay, pump the brakes. Let me challenge your thinking a little bit. Think about it this way. So, I think it's, Vanguard said that in their study that having a good, well-rounded advisor adds another 3% a year to the returns on your accounts. But, going back to your original question, the misconception is like they don't know what to invest in, so they don't invest at all. And it's like, just go grab, the ticker symbol. If you go Google it, SPY, or, call us, or, go to Vanguard and open an account and just set up some auto payments and do that. That's step number one. But I think, people can get into this phase of analysis paralysis where they just don't do anything. And so, the amount you're investing is more important than what you're investing, at least initially.
Yeah, I find that true. When people talk about money, they don't know if they don't have know where to get started. They don't even know what questions to ask, and probably won't seek out anybody's advice. So when somebody comes to you, what can they expect to talk about?
Good question. So we go really deep, and not everybody wants to do that. And I understand, but everybody that gets through the process is like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. But step number one, what we really do is just have a 15-minute phone call because sometimes, sometimes people aren't really ready to have a relationship yet. They might just have one question like, hey, I just got a new job, like what do I need to, do I want to do a Roth 401k or regular 401k? And so, I don't need to look at your tax return to have that conversation with you. So if that's the only question that you have and you don't want to have anything else, like usually a 15-minute phone call will solve that problem. So we always start with the 15-minute phone call. We call it the next best step phone call. And it really is just that. It's like, hey, what problem are you trying to solve, or what fear do you have? Is that something that we can even help with? If it's not, I'll do my best to give you some feedback or point you in the right direction. And if it is, then we'll get the team huddled around you to make sure you get as much support as possible to get you from where you're at now with that maybe feeling of apprehension to anticipation or comfort in the future.
That's nice to hear. I know recently I've been hearing a lot about um, compounding. Could you explain how early compounding works and why starting sooner rather than later makes such a difference?
Yeah. There's a good fable that describes this, and I don't want to butcher it, but it goes something like this. It's like, would you, oh man, it was something about like, would you rather get $1 million or get a penny a day that doubles each day? And it's way more to take, over 30 days to take that. So, um, but compounding, people call that like the seventh wonder of the world. And I think like another kind of good example is like 90% of Warren Buffett's wealth came after his 67th birthday due to compounding. But another way to think about it is that if you can get 7% a year kind of interest, which is a reasonable rate that we can assume invested in the market. Let's say your account, hypothetically could double every 10 years. So saving, let's say you're saving a couple $100 a month, that's $3,000 a year. Over 10 years, that's 30,000 bucks. And let's say it doubles over that 10-year time period. And now it's 60. And let's say, you're 30. And then at 40, you put another 30,000 in it. So it's 90, and then it doubles to 180. And then between 30 and 40, you put another 30,000 in it. So now it's 120. And it's like 250, and then it doubles again. Now it's 1 million. And so it's you don't get a lot of instant gratification when it comes to investing. And that's why it's hard, because we all want to feel good now. We all want to experience the joy of that money now. And compounding is an amazing thing, and especially for a bunch of our retiree clients, the market, the performance has been so well over the last few years that like a lot of these folks' accounts have doubled like in the last 4 years. And so but you can't take advantage of that if you're not investing.
That's true. Very true. Lots of good advice. What are some of the key notes that you would like to leave our listeners with?
I think the first one would be, and I like planting trees. I have a family farm that we plant a lot of trees on, but it's like, the old Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. It's like, you have to, if you have any shame around like where you're at financially or decisions that you've made, you have to like let that go as soon as possible and come talk to somebody like me, because like we don't, it's just like a doctor. Like they don't care how ill you are. They just want to help you get better from there. And so I think, people get analysis paralysis. They have shame that they haven't done anything yet. And you kind of like have to just check your ego and get rid of that stuff and say, hey, I'm going to make a choice to not act this way in the future and not feel this way. And I'm going to go have a conversation with somebody, just like anything else. Like you want to lose some weight, you want to get stronger, you want to train for an event, it's like, we just got to make a choice to do it. And so, And if it's hard for you to do that, then, I'm sure everybody has a friend or family that's a little bit more responsible, from a financial standpoint than others. So lean on other people to help hold you accountable until, you're able to find a financial planner, a wealth manager, and we'd love to help too. We can give you a link to schedule a 15-minute call with us if there's anybody listening to this that needs some feedback. But it's just like anything else. You got to make a choice that you're going to do it and that you're not going to continue to wait to make sure that you're in a really good spot.
Where can people find you? Do you have a website, social media?
Yeah, you can go to Total Wealth DSM for Des Moines, totalwealthdsm.com. We have a website that it's a pretty decent. It will give you a pretty good overview of who we help, how we're different, kind of what it'll look like. It shows our process a little bit. We have an Instagram. We're getting better about putting more content out. But, I would say, if you look at our website and it gives you any feeling at all that, you potentially may want to work with us or that we might be a fit, then just schedule a 15-minute call. And everybody has an extra 15 minutes. And that's why we do that, is just that, we don't know anything about you and you might not know much about us, but I know that it'll definitely be worth your time either way.
That's true. The best investment you can make is in yourself.
Right.
Thank you for taking the time today, Logan, to speak here for the Coaching Collective Online. I really appreciate it. Appreciate what you do and I appreciate you.
Yes. Same to you. Thanks a lot for having me.
Have a nice day.
You too. Take care.